On this, let's speak to political analyst Dirk Kotze, who's joining us tonight on News at Prime. A very good evening to you, sir. Grateful for your time, as always. So, is this it for Ace Magashule, the end of the road politically, basically?
I believe so, yes. I think this is the end of his political career. He might still join other political parties, maybe one of these smaller ones, ATM, or one of these other groups. But that will, in terms of his political career and his political profile up to now, it will be almost insignificant. So I think from my point of view, yes, this is definitely the end of the road for him.
What has led, though, to this rather rapid decline in power and influence for Magashule in especially the period close to when he had just been charged criminally, the ANC conference, and where we are now, when you consider that a good 5-6 years ago, he was one of the most powerful figures in the African National Congress?
Yes, one can go back to 2017 when he was part of the so-called Premier League together with the premiers of the Northwest and Mpumalanga. But since then, and especially because of the fact that President Ramaphosa was elected as president and re-elected now, and he publicly opposed President Ramaphosa. He even at some point stated that he's willing to stand as a presidential candidate. Together with the fact that he has been identified in the Zondo Commission very much, as well as in the fact that he has been charged actually for corruption charges. That also undermined him, that's more likely. And the fact that before last year's national conference of the ANC, he very openly positioned himself as the de facto leader of President Ramaphosa's opposition. And because of that, he became actually the main target in order for President Ramaphosa after his election to remove him from the positions he had in the ANC.
I wonder, though, because he appeared publicly to still command such support, even when he appeared in court post his troubles with the party, if his supporters did not fight enough for him, or that his support was not as strong as it seemed within the organization?
I think when we talk about party politics and the dynamics within political parties, the logic always is that support is going for those who appear to be the strongest, who provide the best opportunities for supporters, and those within networks, you can call it all sorts of networks, that benefit from persons in strong positions. That has become very much the dynamics of the ANC. And because he wasn't anymore in the position of Secretary General, he couldn't take decisions anymore, he couldn't be involved in the networks to reward these networks, and then people move on. And I think this was, and also the fact that the ANC said very openly that people should not go to court and support persons like President Zuma or Ace Magashule. People became scared that there will be consequences because of that. And because of these dynamics, the combination of that eroded the support that Ace Magashule had initially. But the logic is that he lost political power and therefore he was not anymore so attractive.
But there were attempts, for example, I'll use another leader with whom he's had a good relationship, the former President Jacob Zuma, who throughout his various controversies and troubles, even internally in the ANC, continued to command fierce support. What made Magashule different from someone such as Jacob Zuma, who for years has been in and out of the courts, has basically gone back and forth with other leaders in the organization, and his supporters have not left his side, essentially?
Well, I think in the case of President Zuma, he lost that support. He's not so much support anymore when he appears in public. And especially now, it is very seldom that there's actually quite a crowd anymore when he appears in court. And the same logic applies. He's not anymore the president. He does not have the power in order to reward persons who are supporting him. At the same time, those close to President Ramaphosa are indeed in these positions. And that's the logic that applies not only to the ANC, but to many other political institutions all over the world. That's the reality of politics to a large extent, and how people build up support. Think about what happens at the moment with President Trump. I can be very much sort of certain that his support base is also going to go into decline if he is found guilty in the US.
Do you think all of this happened because Magashule at some point thought he was invincible? Because going as far as unilaterally suspending the president of the organization is ultimately what sealed his fate.
Well, I'm not sure if he was regarded himself as invincible, but I think at that particular moment it was an either-or situation. It was either he prevailed or President Ramaphosa prevailed. And I think what he thought is that if he can, with a very smart move, prevent President Ramaphosa from continuing, for example, that he must therefore step aside, that can open up the opportunities for him as well as other President Zuma supporters in order to be in the dominant positions at the time of the national conference of the ANC. Ultimately, that didn't materialize, and I think that is why we see that most of those persons associated with him, President Zuma and others, are not anymore in key positions in the ANC.
With that in mind, then, earlier you said perhaps we could see him join some of the other smaller, newer political parties. Would they have anything to gain from having someone such as Ace Magashule within their fold? What does he bring to the table?
Well, what he brings to the table is a lot of political experience. To be a Secretary General of the ANC is a very, very important position. It's an absolutely key position in South African politics. And it brings you in contact with and gives you power to deal and to shape the way in which South African politics actually unfolded. So with that experience in a smaller group, I think about the ATM, for example, that would definitely be to their advantage. The problem, however, is in order to do that, you need lots of resources in terms of financial resources, infrastructure, organizational infrastructure, and these small parties don't have that. So though they might have good ideas and lots of persons with experience, if they cannot implement it, it's not going to be of any gain to them.
And the ANC, in speaking to us here on Newzroom Afrika earlier, said that basically the expulsion of Magashule is also a message to others in the ANC that there are basically consequences for their actions. You basically play by the rules or you get kicked out. Is this a means to silence dissent?
Well, in some extent, yes. That's I would say the more critical view of this is dissent, but it is also a way of persons who are not following the rules of the game as well as the constitutional rules of the ANC, that there will be consequences for them. So it's also about discipline within the ANC. There's a fine line between discipline and dissent, or ill-discipline and dissent. But I think in this case it went much further than simply dissent, also to a direct challenge, which in ANC terms were unconstitutional, the way in which he tried to sideline President Ramaphosa.
Dirk Kotze, good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time as always, sir.